Mayor Michelle Wu made good on a centerpiece of her campaign yesterday, officially filing her rent control proposal with the Boston City Council. Now, her plan would link rent to the economy, capping annual increases based on inflation and setting a maximum hike of 10%, with exceptions for newer buildings and small owner-occupied properties. It's an effort to slow down ever-increasing rent hikes in Boston, which beat out San Francisco as the second most expensive city in the country for renters last year, falling behind New York. But the City Council is just the first hurdle Wu's plan will need to clear, because Massachusetts voters banned rent control statewide a couple of decades back. The proposal will need to clear the state legislature too before it can actually take effect. And we know that that will be no easy job. Several other cities have tried to pass similar rent control bills in recent years. None of them have passed. But will this time be different? And should it be? So we're going to get into this debate. I'm joined by Mike Leyba, the co-executive director of City Life Vida Urbana, a community organization working for racial, social, and economic equality in Boston. And of course, we're also here with Doug Quattrochi. He is the executive director of Mass Landlords Incorporated and the co-founder of Renter Helper Incorporated. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
So let me start with you, Mike. I know that a lot of folks in your space, in the housing equity space, the renter space, have said that this isn't quite rent control and it doesn't go far enough. What do you think about this proposal?
Well, it's worth saying, let's take a step back here. The mayor choosing to propose this policy to the City Council is itself a huge point of celebration. We have been working to bring back rent control for over 30 years. And since it was repealed in 1994, we've been really trying to build the groundwork and lay the infrastructure and sway the public opinion that this is the right choice for Bostonians. So the fact that we actually are at this place and have a proposal and it's concrete is itself an achievement. So we should be celebrating that today and sitting with that today. But that said, yeah, of course, there are some things that I would, if it were up to me, if I were the mayor, I would strengthen it. There are just a couple of small points that we feel like can really tighten up this policy overall.
What are some of those points?
Oh, to start off, you mentioned the cap on rent increases. So the mayor's proposal is CPI, a measure of inflation, plus 6%. In other words, rent can go up 6% any given year, plus the amount of inflation. So it's already starting from this place of it is inevitable that rent will go up year after year, up to 6%, even before we take into account how costs are rising. People in Massachusetts today, last year, and in the past years, they're struggling to make ends meet. And so any step above inflation is already going to cause severe economic strain on people who are trying to make ends meet.
Well, Doug, let's talk about the effect on landlords. What kind of impact will it have on them?
Well, sure. As they say, the devil's in the details. And I think the first most important detail to look at is that exemption for properties built within the most recent 15 years, because that's actually nowhere in the proposal that the mayor sent to the City Council yesterday. There's a couple of paragraphs that say we can make additional regulations, and I assume that's where the exemption for newly built properties comes in, but that's not actually in the proposal. And so when you look at the other small print, it says we have the ability to establish a board that would oversee rents and establish a fair rate of return. So that basically takes the cap that looks kind of reasonable because it's kind of tied to inflation and throws it out the window and says, well, if we decide, we can say a landlord's not allowed to raise the rent at all because they're already making too much money. And that doesn't recognize rising costs of real estate, professional services like plumbing, real estate tax is what I meant to say there, insurance costs. It's just housing isn't free and there's a whole lot of expense to it. And nobody's talking about cost control in any way. So landlords are really apprehensive about this proposal. And because it's nothing like the Oregon system, which is pretty cut and dry, here's the inflation, here's how much you can raise the rent, there are no rent control boards, it's really unclear how this is going to play out.
That said, historically, though, it seems like the legislation that's in place, especially since '94, has been in favor of landlords in that we have no fault eviction that's in place. We repealed rent control. So historically, if you look at the way that legislation or any bans or lack of exists, technically landlords could expect that these proposals would stand as they are being discussed.
Well, especially the so-called prohibition on rent control, because Chapter 40P actually allows you to have rent control. So Mayor Wu could have rent control at the next city council meeting if she wanted, just by enacting Chapter 40P, which says you can enact any kind of rent control scheme you want as long as you reimburse owners for the difference between the controlled rent and the market rent. So to your point, Mike, we could have an absolute cap on rent increases at 0%, but as housing costs continue to rise, Boston would have to reimburse owners for that. And that's not particularly owner friendly. It's just economics driven because housing costs continue to increase. And so it turns rent control into kind of rental assistance. That's a pretty reasonable thing. And that would really, in our view, help because the mayor would be funding a kind of a new rental assistance. But instead, we have this entirely different thing with rent control boards. We're trying to work around 40P, which is pretty reasonable. So from our perspective, there are lots of options out there, and they're mostly like rental assistance.
Do you think, I mean, we're looking at record level of rent, Mike, and folks really, I mean, San Francisco, when you read this number, I don't know that a lot of folks thought Boston were going to be able to surpass San Francisco in some of this information and some of this data that we've been keeping. Do you think that this will be enough to get folks back into their apartments or to stay in their neighborhoods?
I don't know what people expected would happen. You know, after years of deregulation and letting the industry do exactly what the industry wants to do, this is where we are. It's not, you know, it's not magic. It's not something that's an imaginary idea. It's just this is the way the market works, right? It's interesting that that we're talking about reimbursing, you know, landlord profit. That's kind of an interesting perspective, I have to say. I disagree with the notion that the mayor could automatically do that with the city council tomorrow. That's not, you know, I don't think that's accurate.
It is the law.
Well, let's not create another landlord subsidy. That's probably a bad idea. Either way, we think that most people that live in Boston, most working class people, they are struggling, right? Inflation is high. Rent is high, the cost of living here, education, even gas costs, you know, electric costs right now, eggs, everything is getting more expensive. We have to draw the line somewhere. And the place that we draw the line is where we say, you should not take away access to this critical, life-saving, health maintaining need that people have. That's where we say the line is. You should not take away something that is somebody's ability to remain stably housed, to keep their kids in school, to remain a voter, to access their job and healthcare. This is the difference between housing and other commodities, right? Is there is a social benefit and a social use to having housing. Affordable housing is something that our city desperately needs. I find it interesting that the mayor's proposal, you know, it is actually pretty similar to the Oregon cap. And the Oregon cap is, it's being done for an entire state. There's rural areas, there's suburban areas, there's urban areas. We're talking specifically about Boston, which is one of those two most expensive places to live in the country. The other places have some form of rent stabilization already. New York, California has had it, New Jersey has it. And frankly, New Jersey has a scheme which allows for much stronger rent control than is being done almost anywhere else.
Also, Doug, I want to ask you this, because every time I tend to do a story about this or do any of the research, it seems like these large corporate owners, these mega buildings, these mega high-rises, have different rules than it seems like the small landlords do. And the impact is felt differently. But it seems like the legislation has to affect everyone in a similar way. Do you think that smaller landlords will be better protected under this Wu legislation than they have been in the past?
No, I don't think so. I mean, on the face of it, it looks like it's intended to help small landlords because it says if you own or occupy a 6-unit building, you're exempted. But there's a large spectrum between a landlord who lives in the building across the street from their rental and the large interstate corporations that we're talking about that behave very different from a typical mom and pop landlord. There are lots of folks who provide housing in the city of Boston who are neighbors in the community. They're nearby, but they don't live in the building. They're not going to be exempted from rent control. And when you look at like a city like San Francisco or New York, which has these like nation leading high rents, they've had rent control for decades. And the reason their rents are so high despite rent control is because those rents measure kind of the unregulated market rents. When you have rent control in a system like in Boston, like we could have here, renters who get a rent controlled unit rationally stay as long as possible. If you have a complete rent control system, you can have tenancies stay 10 times longer than average, like 20 years on duration. So those apartments never come up for rent. And the ones that do, like the owner occupied exempt, like I in my 3-decker here would be exempt if I were in Boston. I would be able to charge market rents. And so my rents go way up because all the other housing has been taken off the market. So there's just a lot of factors here, and small owners cover a large spectrum. It doesn't mean owner occupy. It's really small landlords could just live across the street from it and they'd still be subject to rent control.
So in the last minute or so, Mike, I want to ask you, is this a reason to celebrate for, I guess, for renters, for the folks you work with, right? Or is it like, be like, maybe, you know, like.
Well, we're going to celebrate because it's a moment.
Yeah.
I would say that it's not inevitable that we win rent control in Boston or anywhere else in the state. I think the thing that we really need people to do is to make their voice known. Over half of Boston residents, Boston households, are renters. Over half of those renters are rent burden, or 47%, almost half. Our people need rent stabilization, we need rent control, and we need our people to tell their legislators that that's what we need. We need the strongest version of this policy to keep our people in our homes.
Doug, final word in the last 30 seconds we have.
Well, we agree that folks shouldn't get displaced if they can't afford the rent, and that's why Mass Landlords is suing the Department of Housing and Community Development over pandemic rental assistance, because that safety net failed a ton of people. So there should be a safety net. Rent control probably isn't the right way to go, but if there were a rent control scheme that were just like rental assistance, that would probably work, and that is allowed under Chapter 40P currently.
All right, we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Mike Liba and Doug Quattrochi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both.
Thanks.